Tandem Nomads, episode 298.
Really living around the world and not waiting until retirement to enjoy life is really possible, and I have seen hundreds of families doing that.
Hello and welcome to Tandem Nomads, the podcast show and entrepreneurship platform where you can find great inspiration and resources to grow a successful portable business and a business that is aligned with your needs and your lifestyle. This is your host, Emel Deregi. I'm excited to talk to you today about aligning your life with what you truly want. But first of all, before we kick off this episode, I want to say welcome back to you. If you have been listening to this podcast episode, we've been having a refresh series where we revise some past episodes of Tandem Nomads. And it's interesting, this episode, because we are kicking off a new series of episodes with new guests and new solo episodes as well. But in the past couple of months, we've been revising old episodes of Tandem Nomads that are still very relevant. Well, we looked in the past, some of the great episodes that have been resonating with so many of you have been listening. Now we're going to actually go to looking forward in the present and the future in the next episodes. We are, in fact, in Tandem Nomads, we're going to make some amazing changes. So I want you to stay tuned. And there's no other better topic than today's topic to talk about how things have evolved in the past years, especially that Tandem Nomads has been on for almost 8 years now, and a lot of things have changes in. And I'm really excited to welcome our guest, where we're going to talk about how the things have evolved in the field of being a global nomad, living on the move, and aligning our life and our businesses and our careers. So please welcome our great guest, Mauro Repacci. Mauro, thank you so much for being here. And are you ready for this ride?
Thank you, Amel. Very nice to be here, and a pleasure to talk to your audience and your community today. Very excited.
I'm very excited to have you here. So Nomad Nation, a quick note about who is Mauro. Mauro is a seasoned and serial entrepreneur with a proven track record in the travel, relocation, and fintech industries. He began his career at Air Canada, where he played a key role in several major projects, including the 787 acquisition and the launch of a low-cost airline. Most recently, he founded a fintech company, Nest Ready, that's already been acquired by investors. And with 3 daughters, Mauro developed the idea of boundless life while seeking solutions for his own family while living on the move. So very quickly, we'll talk more about boundless life today, but Boundless Life is a global community and educational platform that provides world homeschooling solutions and accommodation and co-working spaces for families who want to live and learn while traveling the world every couple of months. Did I summarize that well for you, Mauro? Does it really fit to how you would describe it?
Yeah, very well. It's been a very interesting journey in the last 18 months, because what we realize is there's a new generation out there that grew up like with things like Amazon, that you get instant gratification, or Uber that allows you to get a car anywhere in the world. And they're now having kids, and they're now looking to live and raise their kids the same way that our parents or grandparents did. So it's really a transformation in the way family live, on the idea of what home is or work is. So I'm very excited to share that with everyone today.
Yes. I was just saying before how a lot of things have evolved so fast. So fast. I don't know if it was fast, but it did evolve. In the past 8 years, 8 years ago, when I started Tandem Nomads, it was not even possible to think and imagine that families can actually live on the move, have access to everything they need to make sure that the kids go to school, that we can continue our careers, and that we can live a meaningful life. Look at today, we went from having digital nomads who are mostly single people to today actually being able to travel as a family. And I think you're one of those people who make it possible, but I'd love to know how you got to do this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had 2 tech companies, and I built them the old ways. So the idea of startup before was having this amazing office, very nicely designed, with a fridge full of Red Bull, nice coffee, and have all the team in the same place and create that culture. And that's really how I built 2 companies from 2007 until like 2021. But then the pandemic came, and we all had to work from home, and we realized the productivity levels of our team was not going down, and their happiness level was increasing substantially. And at the same time, we were saving a lot of money of not having that physical office, that amazing office. And so we realized, like, if I'm building a new company, you would have to be a fully remote, fully distributed team. So today, with Bounded Life, we have people in more than 20 countries, and we're just 2 years old business. And it's really, there's no difference in productivity. Of course, there's a lot of learning curves, and many of our team members are families that now have the ability to spend vacations anywhere they want. They can spend a couple of months close to their parents that are aging, so the kids can, have some grandma, grandpa time. They can live, in the country where they were born. So it's really amazing to see how this is changing people's life and how they're really enjoying that lifestyle now. And that idea of like moving to a big city, working so hard and living in a small apartment, saving all this money. So when you're 65 or 70, then you retire and go enjoy life. People are realizing that it's really broken, and they're not going to wait until they're 65, 70 to enjoy life.
Mm. Yes, and I can see it in my own audience how people are now seeking for meaningful life, building a meaningful life that's not just about like having fun, but also being mindful about how we're spending our time, with who we're spending our time. And I think that's one of the things as well that your clients are looking for, like that meaningful family time while learning and living on the move. So you talked about your employees, kind of, that from your tech company that triggered you wanting to allow that for them to be possible. How about you personally? Tell us more about your personal situation.
Yeah, so I'm from Brazil. So I grew up there, lived there for the first good 20 years of my life. Then I started to travel the world and came back to Brazil, and I had this feeling that I didn't belong there anymore, which is quite common with
Mm.
expats. And then I decided to move to Canada. So I became an immigrant in Canada, where I lived for the last 15 years, and has been an amazing experience. And I'm very thankful for everything I was able to do in Canada. But I got to a point that it didn't feel like home. And winters are long. I'm a warm weather
Mm.
person. So and what happened is, before we had kids, like we were able to travel for 2 or 3 months during the winter, go back home to Brazil, go somewhere, in Central America, Caribbean, and really taking a break from the winter. And then my oldest daughter entered the school system, and I realized that we actually lost the freedom.
Mm.
So because of the way the school system is designed, is force all families to be at a location for the whole school year. Very limited vacations. Everyone takes vacation at the same time. It's the most expensive and busy time. It's a terrible experience for everyone. The hotel industry would rather have families coming, every week than all families coming during the holidays. And we realized that if we don't change this education system, then we would be stuck in the same place for 15 years, because I have to wait for my youngest daughter, that at the time was 2 years old, to be in an age to be independent. So that's the reality of most families, where you say, well, you need to have a home base. And when you realize as a family what is preventing you from traveling, there are two things. There's the education system that I just talked about, and the other one is community.
Mm.
Like when you travel to a new city or a new country, you don't know local people to help you. If your kids have fever at night, you don't know the phone number of a doctor. You don't have a babysitter, so you can go out. So these are the two things that we realized that were major problems with families. And I wanted to do this by myself, and just, my family take a sabbatical, go travel the world for a year. And I told my friend what I was doing, and my friends were mostly working remotely. They were like, well, if you're traveling around the world, we'll do it together. And then from nothing, we had 50 people interested. So I
Mm.
said, well, there's something here that is happening that we never imagined. And we thought would be like a sabbatical, like take a break from your big town and go travel the world for a year, come back home and continue with your life. And then we realized people are not looking to go back home. They're not looking to just have a fixed home base. They're looking to have multiple home bases and have the ability to travel.
Mm.
And if we have a solution like Bounded Life, where we are tackling these two problems, the education system and community, then it becomes very easy for families to do it. And there are many reasons why families are doing it. I can go over more details, like why families look to do this. But it's quite interesting how this change is happening and very fast.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So how are you fixing this challenge of education? Because that's one of the big one. Community, I can imagine how bringing people together to live together and support each other, but the educational part, how do you make sure that these families can give a good, sustainable education for their kids while living on the move?
Yeah, so before Boundless, the solution families used was homeschooling, or if you're traveling the world and homeschooling, it's called road schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So you will go to a new city, and then let's say Vienna, and I'm gonna teach my kids about Austrian history, and we're gonna visit all the museum and learn about their history while you're there. Maybe go to a science center, learn some science. It was not structured, and that's fine for a large number of families. There are thousands of families doing that today, but the mainstream families feel that there's lacking some accreditation and some structure.
Mm-hmm.
So we realized that the majority of families would like to live around the world, but they don't want their education of their kids to be unstructured. So we started looking at all the different education systems around the world, from Montessori to Reggio to Waldorf to the Finnish education system, the IB. So all of the different ones, and we realized Finnish education is the one that innovated the most in the last 20 years. So we really got inspired by the Finnish education system, and we partnered with a company from Finland that had opening schools around the world using that system, and we took that and we redesigned it for the new digital nomad families that want to live around the world. So our system is based on Finnish education, but also has a couple of components that are very important and enable this lifestyle. The first one is project-based learning. So instead of learning subjects like the full year and you're doing every day, division today and tomorrow multiplication and so on and so forth, you have to learn all of the subject within a project. So we use the United Nations sustainability goals,
Okay.
and these 3 months, the kids are all kids in all locations are solving the reduce waste goal.
Wow.
So they're learning, for example, oh, let me calculate how much waste my family produce, so they can count, and then how many all families produce. So that's multiplication. So they're learning with real life problems and using the other thing of Finnish education is about nature-based learning or outdoor learning or cultural immersion. So these are the things that we can leverage because you're in Italy is obvious a great place to learn about Italian culture, Renaissance, arts. So we focus on what each place has to offer. And then the last part is personalization, which now with artificial intelligence can be developed even further. Is every kid is different. You
Mm.
put a kid in a normal classroom, let's say a first grade, you're gonna have a 7 years old and you're gonna have a 6 years old and 1 month in the same class. So how like 11 months difference in a short lifespan that a kid has at that moment is really different. And you cannot expect that a kid that is 11 months younger to learn the same thing, the same pace, the same day. And all of the education system assumes that kids have to follow, and tomorrow we're moving to the next subject. If you didn't learn, then your parents have to teach you at home or you're falling behind.
Mm.
And we actually personalize the education. So that allows each kid to work on their own pace at their own level together, and that's created mobility for families because the project finishes in 3 months they can move to the next location, and there's continuity. And currently you're working to get this whole system accredited so the kids can go to other schools, they can go back home if they want to. They can go to university eventually. So it's really creating this world-class, accredited, and flexible education system based on something that is already proven, which is Finnish education.
That's fascinating. And the one thing I'm not clear about is it that like you have all these hubs because we can talk about it maybe later. You have all these hubs, and in each hub you have a school, or is it that you provide the program to the parents to actually do the homeschooling according to the program of the
No,
Finnish
no,
model?
we have actual hubs. So we
Hmm.
have now four hubs. We're opening Bali, so it'll be our fourth one. And a hub for us is normally in a smaller city,
Hmm.
and we have an education center which fits 60 kids,
Hmm.
age 1 to age 12, four different classrooms. So it's multi-age like Montessori. And then we have a co-working hub where I'm sitting today, where families can work, but also can have events, can get together, and really create that community locally. And then we have 20 homes that are family friendly and all within walking distance. So one of the key points that you're raising in the beginning is how people are changing their way of living. And we believe that living in small cities, it's called a 15-minute city, where
Hmm.
everything can be done by walking, is actually increase your happiness
Hmm.
and increase your quality of life, your health. So we're creating those hubs. Right now, we have one in Portugal, in Sintra. We have one in Tuscany, where I am today, and we have one in Greece, in an island close to Mykonos, Santorini, and Paros. And it's really replicating those hubs around the world, so families have this mobility and can spend, 3 months here and 3 months there.
That's amazing. And talking again about looking 8 years ago, how it was so difficult to actually be able to move so easily from a country to another, and having now a whole movement of countries who actually are facilitating that and creating special visas for this kind of lifestyle is just amazing. We also have, I think, Estonia that has created e-residency with the possibility to register your company there, even if you don't live there, because that's another story. Like even if we're mobile, sometimes the business is not mobile, and it's important taxation-wise to also be able to handle that. So it's very fascinating to see the progress that has been made. And I can imagine now those who are listening who might not have the chance to live this lifestyle, but who want that kind of freedom for them and their family, and we're like, how can I make that happen? Like, especially in terms of work wise, for those who might not have a job that allows them to live on the move and are considering, starting a business that allows them to do that. What would you recommend or advise them to do to figure that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today, I think the biggest challenge is the desire of working remotely is very high,
Hmm.
or at least having the flexibility. So
Hmm.
when you say like working from anywhere, which is the name I prefer, not
Hmm.
working from home, because you don't really need to be at home.
Yeah.
So working from anywhere or having flexibility is like highly desirable for the employees. But for the employer, it used to be very desirable, and now a lot of companies are starting to cut on that. So what I think is many families are looking for alternative ways to make their income, to not be dependent on an employer. And this mindset, and I think the millennials, the new generation, the mindset of having a career in the same company for 20 years is already disappeared way before the pandemic.
Hmm.
So there's the reality is this new generation look at employment as a mean to an end, not like their whole life,
Hmm.
right? So what we see in our community is many people start to adapt their work. So we have, for example, I just talking to one of a nurse. She was working ER in Boston, and she had to go to hospital, like how
Hmm.
she can treat patient, and then she worked in the birth of like kids and ICU and very serious cases, and she had to be at the hospital, and she felt she was having an impact there. But then she tried boundless, like living around the world for 3 months, and while she was here, she started looking, and she found out there are many jobs for remote nurses. So there are remote communities that don't have, medical talent there, and companies will recruit experienced nurses to be on the phone, to have a phone call
Mm-hmm.
and look at the record of patients and then recommend, should you go to a hospital, should you just go to pharmacy and take this over the counter medication. So there's so much possibility, and you think nurse is one that is like the one that you really have to be at the spots, but we have a few of people working in the medical field. They're really traveling the world. They have like psychologists and nurses, speech therapists, and it's really fascinating to see how they're modifying their job. They're finding ways to work, with their patients and have an impact without having to be at a location. So that was a great example. The other one that we saw emerging is micro entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a large number of micro entrepreneurs that have done everything from having an e-commerce, using Shopify, automating all of their product and delivery and building the store and selling some cool product that they really like, to people doing Airbnbs. Like they own 30 Airbnbs and you think, oh, I have all these properties and I need to be at location.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our customers has Airbnbs in Florida and they've been living around the world for 4 years. How do they do that? They automated. So they
Mm-hmm.
automated many of the processes, the checking, and then they have a local person. They have a storage unit that has they manage like a proper business. You use the inventory, you replace the inventory. So they automated all of that. And now they work, 4 or 5 hours a week and manage all of their properties. And the other one, the content producers and content creators that are like partnering with brands and creating amazing content and being able to travel. And many brands are interested in this lifestyle and people that are actually living that way so they can also market their product. So it's quite interesting how diverse it is and how any job really can create a solution or reinvent yourself to be able to actually live with more flexibility.
Definitely. And it's just, I loved all the examples you gave because that's one of the things we were talking about earlier is that one of the objections sometimes that I hear about not being able to do this is like, I have a job that is, or a career or area of experience that it's not portable, that I can't do from anywhere. And nursing and medical sector is one of those fields where a lot of people tell me, but that's not possible. I can't. To be a doctor, you have to be on location. But the idea is really in being creative in how we can transfer our skill set in a way to make an impact and deliver a service that actually is valuable thanks to our experience. It's all about that creativity and figuring it out. I think that's important and great examples that you shared here. What about once we have the business, right? And we seek for freedom. And the other objection I hear often is, oh, I'm started a business to have the freedom, but at the end of the day, to actually make money with that business, it requires a lot of work and dedication. And sometimes it's really overwhelming. So I would love to know what is your take on that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, if being an entrepreneur was easy, then everyone would just do it
Mm.
because it's like amazing to have a nice title and say I have my own business and I do whatever I want.
Mhm.
But the reality is you're grinding most of the time and you're failing almost every day in some different ways.
Mhm.
And your job is to really figuring out and trying to make it successful. So I think is the biggest learning I had after building selling companies and really working different fields is about finding what you really love. Because if you're working on something that is not your passion, there'll be a lot of bad days that you're gonna want to quit. But if you think more, and I did this exercise during the pandemic, like thinking like, what is really the thing that I love and why I love it, and you have to really question it, like why is this something that you want to pursue, and having these conversations with people close to you, and if you pick the right problem to solve, the right industry that you can wake up every morning and feel that you're working hard, but it's rewarding. If you're working for the money or working for this new thing that everyone is working on, like let's say, oh, everyone's building AI now, let's build an AI shop, and you're gonna fail because there's so much competition, and the one that is passionate about it will do better because naturally they're gonna work harder. They're gonna attract people that are also sharing the same passion and vision. So it's really finding this, thing that you really enjoy is the most important part, I think. And then obviously understand what your skill sets are, where you need help. And the great thing is creating small business today is quite easy.
Mm.
There's like
Starting is
Shopify
easy.
or
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of tools and things out there to help you. But like and there'll be skill set that you're not gonna have, and you may need to outsource, some marketing, some like content creation or anything like that, that maybe not your strength. And but it's still hard. It is hard. I say
Mm,
most business fail.
mm,
And also if you fail in one, it doesn't really mean that
mm.
like you shouldn't try again.
Yeah.
Like I think failing is where you learn the most,
Yeah.
and where you grow the most. And if everything is easy and you have tons of money coming, then the learning is not there as much.
Yeah, I love that. This is so much great nuggets here that you are sharing. And you talked about the importance of knowing, like loving what you do, right? And then also being able and accepting to fail. And I think that's one of the things that I see a lot of people when it doesn't work out, they get discouraged. And once they get discouraged, I feel like I'll never do it again because I'm just not good at this. The reality is that being in a business is about as well being creating that resilience to deal with failure and grow from it and then get back on the horse and try again, right? And that's something you've been doing many times. When I read your bio, I see a lot of successes. I can imagine behind that there might have been also a lot of failures.
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and I wonder, because you seem to be very aligned in your life with your families and you actually build a business that is all about that, but how are you making sure that while you're working hard to develop your multiple businesses, how are you making sure to actually stay true to the initial purpose of boundless life, which is freedom, which is time and connection, and I guess being mindful about how you spend your life?
Yeah, that's actually a daily struggle because you're always trying to like balance, like there's always gonna be hundreds of problems for you to solve, right, in your business. And I think, there are times that you have to grind and work many hours and have no balance for a while. But if that happening for a long time, it's really gonna harm your health, your relationships, and a bunch of other things in your life. So what I realize is over time is if I try to do everything myself, it's like I'm gonna be overwhelmed all the time. But if I have a great team and I realize that there's limits on how much effort and I can put and where I can have an impact. But if I can bring people that are as inspired and motivated and even more competent in something than I am, then they will do a much better job. So if you have a business that has a great mission and really inspire people, and you can see that you're building things that are impacting family life, we are able to attract amazing talent across
Mhm.
the board, from our educators to our local management team to our senior management. It's really amazing to see. And in my last business, most people were working for us because we paid a very high salary. Now people work for us because they share this vision
Mm,
and mission. And that's allows me to have a little bit more flexibility.
mhm,
And but to be honest, it's actually one of the most difficult things for entrepreneurs is
mhm,
to have balance. Because
mhm,
if you're working from anywhere, then your computer is can be turned on. There's no walls like an
mhm,
office. You can leave your computer and turn off. And like when I had my first job, I would leave my computer in the office.
mhm.
Like
Yeah,
you're done working, and that's it. And the boundary is naturally created. Where when you're working remotely, that is up to you.
yeah.
So you need to have, like, I try to have calendar points where like I'm fully blocked, no one can book meetings. But the other challenge I have as well is having team members in multiple time zones. So we
Mhm.
have people from, Jakarta, like Indonesian time zone, all the way to West Coast United States.
Yeah.
So like we're covering pretty much like half or two-thirds of all of the time zones. And if you have to, let people book meetings, I'm gonna have meetings at 7 in the morning and then at midnight every day. So I think you need to understand your limits and create your own boundaries because no one's gonna create that for you.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And when I listen to you and I also look at my own journey, I realize how important that passion is because I think that's what keeps us going. But I feel like the success factor is a combination of grit, really wanting to make that impact we want to make through the business, and at the same time, intention, being intentional about while being committed to the business to create some system, some routine that actually reminds us of why we're doing it, as well as making sure that we are mindful about how we're spending our energy and our time. I think that the combination between
Yeah.
both is really important. I struggle to believe in the word balance, but as you said, I think there are times to push and there are times to pull, but there's also ways to kind of create routines and systems to make sure to remind us of the intentionality of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other key factor is someone told me, I think it was one of our advisors, that creating your own business is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And
Exactly.
I see many people running as a sprint, and then after a week, you're burned out,
Yeah.
right? And the thing is, you need to realize is many business, the longer you can keep going, the more likely you are to succeed. Like most business fail within the first year, and then second year is less, and third year is much less, and then you can start having like customers that come back to you. Banks start to be open to giving you loans. Things start to get easier over time, and your risks also reduce. But you need to be able to keep running it. So I
Right.
think I seen many cases of founders or entrepreneurs that get burned out very quickly because they're just not sleeping and not having balance. So I think it's just really up to you to understand and have the right intention, like you mentioned, to know like is that being positive to your body or not. Like saying that you're gonna work 9 to 5 and that's it. Maybe you'll be unless you're extremely lucky
Mm-hmm.
and pick the right thing, then working very few hours and earning a lot of money to pay for your lifestyle. Or what I think too is many entrepreneurs realize, what, with 4 hours I make enough money, but I cannot live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I have enough money to live in a lower cost place, let's say
Mm-hmm.
Bali.
Mm-hmm.
So they move to Bali and they work 4 hours and make enough income for that country. So geographic arbitrage is going to be one of the biggest things in the coming years and really going to level all the different economies. Because what we're seeing in many years, and for me being from a developing country, you realize the dream of every person living in the developing world was to move to a big, successful, stable country, right? But now, where jobs are anywhere, so many people are saying, well, I can have a job and earn income in a high income, high paying country, and I spend that in another place that costs less. And then you get a lot more. And some people are happy with that. Some people are not. But like, it's really an opportunity that we're seeing. And it can be even within the same country. Like people moving from New York to the Midwest, where a house costs, 200,000 instead of 2 million,
Mm.
and we're seeing a lot of lifestyle changes that allow people to create this life that is not does not require you to put all your effort in one thing and just work and not
Yeah,
have any balance.
definitely. And to wrap up this amazing conversation, I just I just love your story, how it's such an illustration of how our times have changed in general in the past years, but since the pandemic, how many resources and solutions there are to actually make a decision. I see more and more families making huge decisions saying, listen, this is not how we want to live, and take the courage to change their whole lives. And today we have much more possibilities than before to actually make those big decisions and say, this is not how we want to live. And we actually can change how we live. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think today there's so many tools out there for people to realize that if they moved to different cities, different locations, different countries, how different their life can be, and that goes from anything from cost of living to the weather to taxes. So it's really out there. There's a very large community of people that help families make that change,
Mm.
and that could be like from I mentored for many years at this accelerator called Founder Institute, and we help people that work in corporate world to become entrepreneurs. So it was amazing. There are companies that were created there that are worth $1 billion today, and it's really fascinating to see. And I think now that which was just designed for creating startups can be actually expanded to any other field. And I think I wouldn't be like disappointed or afraid of looking at it and say, well, I have this, office job or I have to be on site and it'll never work for me. I seen like firsthand working for people from all different job backgrounds and languages and countries and really focusing on what they love and really looking for, a more flexible, more balanced life and more fulfilling life, which is really what we are tackling with Boundless.
This is wonderful. What is the best place to find you, Mauro, and get to know more about Boundless Life?
Yeah, our website is boundless.life, and we have Instagram, Boundless Life, Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter as well, Mauro Repacci.
That's amazing. So, Nomad Nation, I will be putting all the information on the show notes of this episode as well on tandemnomads.com/298. Mauro, I had such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your great inspiration and great story with us and very interesting insights.
Has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Amel.
My pleasure. So, Nomad Nation, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And we can't wait to see you. Pay close attention in the next coming episodes because I got some big news for you. As I said, a lot of things are evolving in our industry, in our market, and therefore a lot of things will be evolving in Tandem Nomads world as well. So stay tuned for the next episode with be sharing with you some big news. And in the meantime, stay tuned to turn your challenges into great opportunities.